Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship. Warning.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Rebel News live stream on this Thursday, April 29th, 2021. I'm David Menzies, and as always, every Tuesday and Thursday, I am joined by the woman who goes by the initials SGR, that sensational, groovy, rinse and repeat, the she-devil with a sword, the Khaleesi of Northern Alberta, Sheila Gunn Reid. How you doing, my friend?
David, I'm always doing better after your wrestling promo intros. Those are my favorite things. And just so everybody at home knows, I can hear him rehearsing them in the 30 seconds before we go live. He talks to himself and rehearses them, but I can't quite make it out. So it's still always a surprise to me.
Well, I had to give you a WWF kind of introduction, Sheila. I see you're wearing your resplendent Macho Man Randy Savage t-shirt. I have a knockoff version of that, by the way, same color, but a different wrestler who just ripped off the Macho Man. I'm going to wear it one day, but yours is the genuine article, as are you, Sheila Gunn Reid.
Aw, David, that's so nice. Before we open this meeting of the Mutual Admiration Society, we should tell everybody exactly what we're doing here today.
That's an excellent idea.
This is the Rebel News daily live stream. It used to just be on Fridays and hosted by Ezra Levant, and it used to just be on YouTube, but there's a long story surrounding that. We expanded the live stream to 5 days a week because during the pandemic, there's more news than ever. There's more things to talk about, and a lot of people were at home. So we thought we'll give the people something to watch, and we'll give them the opportunity to support us. And at the time, before YouTube went extra evil, they allowed us to do something called a super chat. But they completely demonetized us because, well, who knows? They can just do whatever they want, apparently. Yeah. So now, might I encourage you to watch us over on Rumble or on Odyssey? Don't give YouTube your eyeballs if you don't have to. And because YouTube completely demonetized us, we have a special way for you to continue to support the work that we do through something called a Rebel Chat. If you're over on Rumble, if you click the link in the description box, there's a Streamlabs link there, and it'll take you off of Rumble. And the same link is also in the YouTube description box. Click on that. It'll take you off over to Streamlabs. You can throw a little money in the pot there. Just put in your username. Make sure it's all one word. Whatever you want, just make sure it's all one word. You can leave us a question, a comment, a story idea, a criticism. Tell us a joke. Whatever. You can do it in the form of a Rebel Chat, and we'll read it live on air here. Justin, the super producer, will send it to me, and we'll do that. And if you're over on Odyssey has a live chat function. So it's sort of like YouTube where you can interact with each other, which I think was one of the funnest things about these YouTube live streams, is that there was this little community that grew in the comment section. Well, you can still enjoy that over at Odyssey while not supporting the horrors of YouTube. So they have a live chat over there where you can sort of chit-chat back and forth with each other. And you can do something on Odyssey called a hyper chat. And it's a cryptocurrency-based Rebel Chat, I guess, where you can donate to us some of Odyssey's cryptocurrency. It's called a library. And so that's what you can do over there. So you might have to purchase a few libraries. I don't know what the exchange rate is for those. Actually, I don't even understand cryptocurrency whatsoever. It's about 20 cents, apparently. A library equals 20 cents Canadian or U.S.? Thank you. I'm full of great questions. It's not a lot, but it's 20 cents. And, every little bit counts. But yeah. That would be great if you wanted to support us, you can do it that way.
This is just so over my head, Sheila. It's like when Yankee is talking in the morning meeting, it sounds like the Gardner Expressway from Front Street, just this drone going on. But, I got to tell you something. I contacted somebody, a friend of mine in mainstream radio, And this is really the sweet spot to be broadcasting. It's noon here in Toronto. It's 1 o'clock in the Maritimes. Your time, it's 10 a.m., 9 a.m. in British Columbia. And why it's good, Sheila, is that I had no idea, but it makes perfect sense. The drive to work, the morning radio, which is the most coveted spot, to have, those ratings are actually tanking all over the world. And the reason is people aren't driving to work because most people don't, so, where the lion's share of the ratings used to be in radio, it has shifted to later because whereas once you'd be driving, now you're just sort of getting out of bed or getting out of the shower. And I really think this early afternoon spot or late morning spot, this is when people are actually, a lot of people, and it's unfortunate, I'm not mocking, the situation, but that is the reality. It's amazing when you look at the compounding effects of this pandemic we're in. Just like the office towers in downtown Toronto, I don't think they're ever going to fill up again, Sheila. I can see them being a third empty, 2/3 empty. If employers are saying, hey, listen, do you still want to continue working at home? And who wouldn't? I mean, who adores that 2-hour commute each way into the office? And then the corresponding fact or effect, Sheila, of that is you have food courts that service these towers, which are basically small towns unto themselves. Well, suddenly, if 2/3 of the people aren't there, then your ratings, or your earnings rather, plummet. So there's so many cause and effect things happening out there that I don't think we've given attention to, that if things ever get back to normal, I don't think it's ever going to resemble the old normal, Sheila.
Oh, I long desperately for the before times, and frankly, the before times weren't all that great for downtown Calgary. At one point, I think it was 1/3 of the office towers in downtown Calgary, their commercial space was sitting empty because of the downturn in oil and gas. It's headquarterville down there. Now, throw the pandemic on top of that, and what do you do with these office towers now? And again, when you have basically all the HQ of the oil patch in Canada in one place, you kill the oil patch and then you kill working in an office. What happens to everything around there? I've never been able to get parking downtown anywhere. Edmonton, Calgary. Now you just pull right up, walk out, get out of your vehicle and walk right in. Just even when you think about parking, try to go to a hospital these days. Hospital parking used to be atrocious. Now, right up front. Which leads me to believe the hospitals are not as busy as they say they are.
It's what I call movie parking, Sheila. You never see anyone in a movie like circling the block looking for a space to parallel park. There's always at least 3 spaces right out the front door of the destination where the character's going to, and they just pull right in. Like, Batman did in the 60s TV series. There is never a car in front of City Hall when Batman and Robin go to meet with Commissioner Gordon and Chief O'Hara. How is that? But yeah, it's because it's phony. It's fantasy. It's movie parking. But now we have movie parking. I experienced the same thing. Spots that were like 1 in a million coveted spots in regular time are now there and available. And there's a reason for that. And that is because the economy is in the dumpsters big time. And it's very sad, actually. So, but speaking of Calgary, why don't we use
I was going to say, speaking of dumpsters, we should talk about Joe Biden's address to Congress. I don't know. It was a lot of lizard-faced, over-Botoxed people talking about how the rich aren't taxed enough was my takeaway from that. Ted Cruz appeared to doze off during Biden's speech is the headline in the Daily Caller. And I'm feeling Ted Cruz right now, that's for sure. I don't know if we have a clip of his speech, but Biden's speech marked the day before his 100th day in office. And naturally, he called for gun control, lowered prescription drug prices, and touted his jobs plan, which is weird because I'm pretty sure he killed Keystone XL. And he called the January 6th Capitol riots the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
Oh, really? And when
Wow.
and when Antifa took over a federal court building for months on end in Portland, what was that? I mean, you talk about a real insurrection. That's incredible. And by the way, when you list what he wants, Sheila, be very careful. Make sure you put the asterisk. For example, gun control. When Joe Biden talks about gun control, he's not talking about the armed security that surround him and his loved ones, mind you, right? No. No limitations on those arms. He's just talking about, the great unwashed masses, right?
Yeah.
So, he's two-faced when it comes to that. Do we actually have a clip, I think, of the Tim Scott situation? Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, fire away, Sheila.
No, I was just going to say, so Republican Tim Scott, he was selected by the Republicans to sort of give the rebuttal to Joe Biden's accusations of the riot being the worst thing to happen to the United States since the Civil War. Did we forget 9/11? Like, have we forgot 9/11?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't seem like it's that far away, right? Or the Oklahoma City bombing. Like, there's a lot of stuff that were a lot worse than a bunch of scared politicians.
Boston Marathon.
On the Capitol. So anyways, the Republicans chose Tim Scott, who, for those of you who don't know, is incidentally black, but he's a very conservative Republican. I like him very much. And they chose him to give the rebuttal to the address to Congress. And I think after watching it, I'm forced to disagree with Tim Scott on one point that he made. One of the points that he made was that the United States is not systemically racist. But given the behavior of progressives and big tech after Tim gave his rebuttal, I'm not so sure, because Twitter allowed racist attacks on Tim Scott to trend for like 12 hours straight.
Oh, yeah.
They were calling him Uncle Tim instead of Uncle Tom. I mean, it was just grotesque, the things that they were saying about him. And if big tech can sort of just allow that to fester while censoring conservatives all the time, maybe there is a systemic racism problem. It's just not the way the left likes to think it is.
I think you're right, Sheila. This is approved racism. This is what big tech would consider appropriate racism. There was a horrible slur, and that is given typically to black people who are conservatives. They're called Oreos. Black on the outside, white on the inside, which in itself is outrageously racist to say. And yet it's amazing that the left, really does embrace this idea that there is an appropriate use for racism if it's anti-white or against those who have opinions that might be considered to be those of a white mindset. I'm probably not explaining this correctly, but they would look at a fellow like Tim Scott and they would say, by your identity politics, you should be on the left simply because of your skin color. You shouldn't even be a Republican. You shouldn't even be voting Republican. That is the mindset of the modern Democratic Party today, Sheila.
Yeah, they feel entitled. They feel ownership over the minority vote.
Yeah.
And when somebody like Tim steps out and says, no, I don't have to think the same way as you. I have different issues. I care about different things. I see problems facing minority communities, and I've got different solutions than you do. They immediately turn on him with racist rhetoric. Talk about paternalism and racism, that you think minority voters are some homogenous block that you're entitled to instead of treating them as individual free-thinking people. That to me is racism. And by the way, if you want to see how horrible the mainstream media is, two different headlines, one from Fox News, one from Newsweek. Yeah. Fox News reports Uncle Tim's slur against Tim Scott trends on Twitter. From Newsweek, Newsweek has Twitter blocks Uncle Tim from trends after racist phrase, blah, 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 blah. So one is what actually happened. Twitter let this trend for a very long time, a racist slur trend for a very long time. Newsweek makes Twitter the good guys. Twitter blocked it. Yeah, only after it trended for several hours.
Huh.
I mean, how awful. But I mean, that's making big tech the good guy instead of the bad guy they really are.
It is astonishing. And remember, this is the same Twitter that has a lifetime ban on President Donald Trump, yet allows the Ayatollahs in Iran, the biggest state sponsor of terrorism, to weigh in freely, uncensored. But, I think that speaks a lot to the left, how I think leftists, the progressives there, Sheila, they hate the United States of America. They hate the Constitution. They especially hate the First and Second Amendments. And there's this narrative that's being taught in school now that America is an inherently racist country. It was built upon racist founders. And it's kind of funny, you look all over the world at consulates, at the U.S. consulates, that is, and pick a country, any country, spin the globe, and you will see lineups of people, racialized people, trying to get a green card, trying to become a U.S. citizen, trying to emigrate to the United States of America. It reminds me, in 2018, our ace cameraman, film editor, Efren and I, we went down to Mexico. Remember the caravan, tens of thousands of people,
Yep.
Sheila, just coming up from Mexico and Central America to get into the U.S. And we had a sidebar interview. It was a progressive journalist from, where else? San Francisco. And I posed the question to her. I said, because she was of the belief of the problem with inherent systemic racism in America, and of course, Donald Trump, the biggest racist in the world. And I said, but why are all these tens of thousands of people leaving their countries and trying to illegally go into the U.S.?
Yeah.
It was dead air, Sheila, right?
Yeah.
She didn't have an answer, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think that it brings us to Kamala Harris.
Yes.
Because after everything happened, Kamala Harris came out and said that she agrees with Tim Scott that the U.S. is not racist. Well, I guess so. They just elected, this is a no-brainer, and this shouldn't be controversial among the left that she agrees with Tim Scott on this issue. But she agrees with Tim Scott that the U.S. is not racist, but says that racism must not be ignored. Again, thank you. Of course. I mean, the U.S. elected a vice president woman of color. She's one Joe Biden mini stroke away from being the president of the United States and thus the leader of the free world. A country that can do that is not systemically racist. And I guess she's under a little bit of fire for saying that. But I mean, yeah, of course. And this is why I don't like when Justin Trudeau says stuff like Canada's a genocidal state or systemically racist. We're not. And I don't want a leader who dislikes the country so much who would say those things. I want a leader who thinks this is the best place in the world, not the worst.
They don't talk like that anymore on the left, Sheila. It's all about self-loathing. And, I got to be honest, I wake up every day and I think I'm in a dream. I still can't believe Trump was not reelected. I mean, when you looked at the Trump rallies and you looked at the Biden rallies, where it was basically pull up a chair to a table of 12 versus thousands of people coming out to a Trump rally. There's a very intriguing series that's on. It's the only thing I'm watching these days in the Department of Fiction. It's called The Man in the High Castle. And what it's about, Sheila, if our viewers haven't heard of this, and it's very interesting, actually. It depicts an alternate future where the Allies lost the war. So Nazi Germany controls the eastern part of the U.S. The western part of the U.S. is the Pacific states under the control of the Japanese. The Midwest is the neutral zone. And it's all about, basically, a horrific dream come true, right? It's set in the 1960s. And that's how I feel about our current reality. Is this our man in the high castle? Is this not the reality we belong in? we somehow got misfiled in the matrix that, you know, the Kamala Harris, Joe Biden administration is now running the show. And I put them in that order because Joe puts them in that order sometimes.
I know. We should get to some of these rebel chats.
Absolutely.
Or hyper chats, as they're called on Odyssey. And again, if you'd like to donate to us, even though that YouTube has completely demonetized us, if you go in the description link on YouTube and on Rumble, there's a Streamlabs link there. It'll take you off site. You can leave a little chat and drop us a few bucks to help keep the lights on and help keep David Menzies in those beautiful ties. Is that your tie or Ezra's today?
No, that's one of mine.
Oh, it's nice.
Thank you.
Okie doke. Let's get to some of these. Alrighty. Commie Canada donated $2.85. Maybe people will start waking up when our woke PM's constant quantitative easing results in hyperinflation and Canada goes full Weimar. As bleak as our cultural future is, our economic future is even more bleak. I don't know about hyperinflation, but I do know the cost of lumber is outrageous. It's homeschooling around here, and so construction and fabrication class involves fixing the deck and pulling out some rotten boards on the deck and rebuilding those. And I think it's like the price of lumber is more than double what it was just a year ago at this time for some kinds of lumber.
Aren't there lumber shortages, Sheila, in certain regions too?
Oh, there very well could be. I mean, we have more trees than anywhere else on the face of the earth, but I mean, whatever.
Wow.
Yeah. I just pulled up a CBC article of all things. And it's funny to read a CBC article on anything that involves construction because it's like, for them, it's like going to the zoo. They don't understand any of this stuff, like physical labor and like blue collar jobs is very like, it's exotic to them. Anyways, they interview a guy who is a deck, like builds decks for a living. And he says, last year, I would have spent about $12.85 on a corner post that I spent almost $40 on this morning.
Wow.
Yeah. So imagine, like doing home repairs. I saw a number that said that the cost of lumber is adding $30,000 to the cost of a new home over and above. It's crazy.
Geez, maybe all the extra taxes on that inflated lumber, this is how the budget balances itself.
Yeah. It's just, I don't even understand how this is even happening in a place that has more trees than anywhere else in the world.
No, but that's a great point. I mean, how is this happening? I mean, is it because mills are shut down or reduced capacity due to the virus? I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, it's like living in Atlantis and there's a water shortage, right?
Yeah, they say there isn't enough supply to meet the demand. And so building materials across the board are seeing increases, but not as drastic as that of lumber. And I mean, they quote even like garbage lumber, like OBS, which is just made of garbage, like it's just press board, right? And they say OBS, a sheet of OBS used to be $11. Now it's $48.
Oh my goodness. You know,
yeah.
But it's just like you said, the trees are there, you chop them down, you send them to a mill. It's not like, for example, bicycles. Try buying a good quality bicycle or any bicycle. I mean, I've been to Walmarts and Canadian Tire where they're completely sold out of bicycles. And my friend at Evolution Cycle in Richmond Hill, fantastic bike store, he basically told me the way the bicycle industry is, it's all these different moving parts. Somebody builds these components, somebody builds the frame, somebody builds the handlebar. And there's been so many shutdowns that to start up this spider web of assembly again is actually quite a logistical challenge. So the only bikes he has for sale are really the high-end stuff, 5,000 and up, and there's not a lot of people that can afford that, especially these days. So what I'm getting at is that lumber is not a finished manufactured product like a bicycle.
Yep.
So they're really, I still can't figure it out. And those prices you're quoting, that's outrageous.
Well, my loose research says that when they temporarily shut the lumber mills down at the beginning of the pandemic and the logging camps and all of that, what that did was it caused an instant shortage in the supply chain that they've never been able to catch up from. And then you have all these people sitting at home with time on their hands and they want to do construction projects. So you have the industrial or the large scale construction firms competing for the same lumber with the guy who wants to build a deck because he's working from home. And you compile that with the fact that there's a lumber shortage from way back and they've never been able to catch up, and it's just causing the prices to go up and up and up.
I'd love to be a lumberjack, going to work with a big axe and, doing that thing on the log in the water, right?
Yeah. I like plaid. I could do it. Okay, let's keep going. Okay. Pink Phoenix Nails, that's Catherine. Hello. Good morning, friends. Shout out to Justin and the amazing Rebel team. Amazing. Yes. We've got a hyper chat of 2 libraries. Again, I have no idea how cryptocurrency works. Nothing. I don't know how this money exists on the internet. I don't understand it. Anyways, he says, vote for Kevin J. Johnson for Calgary mayor.
Oh, Sheila, do weigh in on the jackal. Why don't you?
Nope. Trini Canadian donated $3.05. Avi's latest report on the veterans was sad and really hurtful. How our governments treat our veterans. We spend so much money for Aboriginal affairs, and rightfully so, but we don't give the same respect and funds to our veterans who deserve it. I think that's a problem all over. We see the same problem here where our money is just going out the door in all these weird directions for feminist initiatives all over the world, and green energy projects and bike chargers and specialty things for government workers to go green, while our veterans are fighting the government in court to get their due.
And Sheila, last Saturday in Peterborough, Moke and I went out there. It was a freedom rally. It was in Confederation Park. It was literally in the shadow of the cenotaph there, showing all the men who gave their lives fighting for our freedoms. And there was a group of about a half dozen veterans that got up to make a speech, and very compelling. And what did the mayor have to say about the attendees going there? I'm talking about Diane Therian. A traveling clown convention. Can you imagine that? A traveling clown. Here are veterans in front of a cenotaph talking about how important it is to hang on to our freedoms. And this mayor calls them clowns, a bunch of bozos. I think we know who the real bozo is.
Yeah, that's a very compelling piece of video that you have there, where the veterans are going down the line and listing where they served and for how long. And I think we should maybe couple that with a clip or a video or just an image of that mayor calling them all bozos. Yeah,
and using profanity while doing so too.
Yeah, that should be a campaign ad for her competition.
Yeah.
B. Howie donated $4.07. Pawlowski, that's Pastor Art, who we will get to shortly, referring to Nenshi as a Muslim homosexual. Again, I'm just reading these. On the Alex Jones show, did not help his cause. Tisk, tisk. Look, I didn't see that, very rarely do I miss the Alex Jones show, but I didn't see that. But I don't think that changes the fact that he should be allowed to have his church service uninterrupted by the provincial health authorities. And I don't think that he should go to jail for having a religious service. And that's really what it comes down to. What he said, what he doesn't say, none of that matters. He's got the freedom in this country of religion to hold a religious service. If you don't like it, don't come. And he should not have his church services interrupted by the state. And the state should not be seeking court orders to allow them to interrupt it. That's really what it all comes down to.
And Sheila, to this day, his best service was, "Get out! Get out! Don't you
30 times.
It was amazing. But then again, I mean, when you look at that video, he clearly humiliated the Calgary police and that woman from, I think, Alberta Health Services. I'm not sure if she was from there or the city. I can't remember. And but it looks like they've just amped up their harassment. I think we are seeing a vendetta against this man because he is standing his ground.
Yeah, no, I think so too. They are doing something to him that they did not do to Grace Life Church, even after they arrested his pastor or their pastor for 35 days. And that is enter the church during services. Even the RCMP, after they locked up the pastor and now have basically confiscated the church property, but even they didn't try to enter the church. They knew that that would be a serious breach of the criminal code.
Yeah.
Sorry. Hey, David, are you wearing a wig? This is John Yoga says this. Are you wearing a wig?
Well, if I'm wearing a wig, it must be the worst wig imaginable. I mean, if I would buy a wig with a lot more hair, I think, than that. What is this wig reference to? Is my hair scaring people again? That's the origin of the hat. I've told this story before on air, folks, that going back to last May, a CBC reporter was running backwards almost into traffic at Queen's Park Crescent. I was actually concerned for her safety, and I approached her and I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "I'm scared." I said, "What are you scared about?" She says, "Your hair, it's blowing around," right? So, well, needless to say, she won't be dispatched to Afghanistan for any war reporting, I don't think. But I thought, my gosh, because you couldn't find a haircut anywhere at the time, Sheila.
Right.
And I thought, if my hair's making me look like Frankenstein, I better cover it up, and that's why I bought the hat. So maybe is it getting out of control again?
I don't know. I just zoomed in on the Skype feed right in front of me, and I can see your scalp. And so I don't know if that, if it's a wig, it's pretty realistic anyway. Oops, I just somehow clicked out of everything that I was, because I zoomed in on the Skype feed.
Well, in the meantime, you mentioned
yes,
Arthur.
let's talk about art.
Yeah. And I thought that was a fantastic piece by our newest rebel, Adam Seuss. And why don't we just go over to, well, it is, correct me if I'm wrong, it's an exclusive to us, isn't it, Sheila? Because yes. Arthur, with good reason, doesn't trust the mainstream media. So let's take a little look at Adam's piece.
Immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out!
Communist, fascist. I do not cooperate with Nazis. Talk to my lawyer. You're not allowed here. You're not welcomed here. And I'm not going to cooperate with Gestapo like you, okay?
Remember when Art told the police to come back with a warrant? Well, they did. A secret one obtained in secret, using secret evidence. Here's the warrant. We just saw it today. It's an order which Alberta Health Services obtained without notice against Artur.
They're coming very heavy. They're bringing documents. They're bringing SWAT team. They're bringing health inspectors, police officers, and the bylaw officers. But there is a good news. Rebel News decided to help us, and they're hiring the best lawyers in the country to keep me out of jail. If you want to help, please to go to safeartur.com and you can help me stay out of jail.
Rebels, we have an absolute emergency on our hands. We have another pastor in Alberta who could potentially face jail time, just like Pastor James Coates of Grace Life Church. This pastor is known to you. Actually, he's known to the whole world. Pastor Artur Pawlowski was our very first Fight the Fines case after he received lockdown tickets for feeding the homeless outside in Calgary, Alberta. Something the police called an illegal gathering. Art continues to rack up tickets because he refuses to stop feeding the homeless, and he doesn't wear a mask when he does this outside. Art also doesn't limit his church service to the 15% of fire code required by the city, and the city hates him for it. But Art's got an excellent lawyer named Sarah Miller who is working for him at no cost to him through our Rebel News Civil Liberties Initiative, fightthefines.com. Today we found out that Artur needs Sarah's help now more than ever, which means that we need your help to pay for it all, so Art can do what he does, and that is take care of the least of our brothers here in Calgary. Friends, this is an absolute 5-alarm fire, and we need to save Artur. Here's what's happening. As you know, police visited Art's church on Holy Saturday, and he cast them out, not allowing them to disrupt services. That video went viral.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out.
Okay.
Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. Out.
Even after that video embarrassed not only the province of Alberta's Alberta Health Services, but also the City of Calgary Police on an international scale, they came back. They're out to show Art who's boss.
Well, friends, we have a SWAT team in our church again, coming, authorities. So I'm going to go out and see what they want. Yes.
Hello, Artur.
Hi, Arthur. I wonder if I could just give you a copy, please, of the court order. This is for you. It basically outlines the fact we have the right to enter today. At least explain the order, serve the order, and then we can stand at the back.
No, you can contact.
stand at the
No.
service
You
and
can
just
contact
do-
my lawyer.
We'll
Okay,
be
my
back in
lawyer
3
takes care
minutes,
of
and then
this.
we can be out
I'm
of
not interested to listen to any word you have to say. I do not cooperate with Gestapo.
Remember when Art told the police to come back with a warrant? Well, they did. A secret one obtained in secret, using secret evidence. Here's the warrant. We just saw it today. It's an order which Alberta Health Services obtained without notice against Artur. It's their response to his Get a Warrant video from over Easter weekend.
Immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out.
What this means is that an Alberta Health Services inspector will now be exempt from Section 176.2 of the Canadian Criminal Code, which prevents the disruption of religious service in progress. So an Alberta Health Services inspector will be able to enter Artur's church and interrupt ongoing service. It's unbelievable, but it's true. Here's the document we received just today, filed in secret on April 23rd, just a couple days ago, against Artur and his Street Church Evangelism Ministries International Foundation. It was filed in Court of Queen's Bench in Calgary. Here's what the warrant allows. Number 1. The respondent Art Pawlowski, together with any other person at the property, and they list the address of the church here, shall grant access to any executive officer as defined in the Act in order for him or her to attend the property without notice during the hours of 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. to allow the executive officer to exercise his or her powers under Section 59 of the Act. So the health inspector can come and disrupt church service all day, every day, essentially. It goes on, look at this. In the event the respondent Artur Pawlowski or any other person refuses to grant any executive officer access to the premises, hinders or interferes with the executive officer or the exercise of his or her powers, then any members of any police services shall be permitted to accompany and assist the executive officer and use such reasonable force as they consider appropriate to gain access to the premises to allow the executive officer or anyone assisting the executive officer to exercise his or her pursuant to Section 59 of the Act.
You know, Sheila, there's so much to unpack there, but right off the hopper, with both those videos, the infamous Get Out one and when they come back, why is it that I think I counted about a half dozen Calgary police, armed Calgary police, Why do they think they need that kind of escort for the Alberta Health Services lady? Arthur and as far as I know, anyone with his congregation, they don't have a history of violence. So what gets me is the complete misuse of police forces. I'm sure there's other kinds of crime going on in Calgary that is going untackled because there's, like I said, a half dozen officers just standing around looking at the pastor. I mean, the only thing I can think of, Sheila, is this is out and out intimidation.
Oh, for sure it is. They sent the gang suppression unit out to deliver that court order to him. And that court order says not only can they enter Pastor Art's church during services, doesn't matter. They gave them a time frame of 8 in the morning till 8 at night. So basically the whole day, right? They can do that whenever they feel like. Nobody can stop them. They're allowed to use whatever force they need to have the inspection of the facility. And if Pastor Art tries to prevent them, they can take him using whatever force is necessary. They lay that out very clearly. Take him immediately before a judge, hold him in contempt of that court order, and thus a judge's order, and throw him in court or throw him in jail for contempt of court, which is very similar to what happened to Pastor James Coates. Now, they didn't get a court order against him. What they did with him was they arrested him and then released in his office and then released him with an undertaking that he didn't sign, by the way. Not that it mattered to the provincial health authorities to not hold service the following week or to attend a non-compliant church. Well, Pastor Coates didn't listen, so they held him for 35 days. If Art tries in any way to inhibit the interruption and the solemnity of his church services, he's off to jail. And they would love to do it. You want to, the kind of government that would send the gang suppression unit to a church is exactly the kind of government that has no problem locking up Art.
First of all, I'd like to think, if that's the gang suppression unit, I'd like to think those officers are silently thinking, what the hell am I doing here? This isn't what I signed up for. I'm to get the gangbangers off the street.
Last time I heard about the gang suppression unit, they were serving closure notices to restaurants in Calgary. They served one to outlaws. So I guess the gang problem is completely resolved in Cowtown because now they're acting as the enforcement arm of Alberta Health Services.
So here's the big question, Sheila, moving forward. Where does this story go from here? What is going to happen to Artur?
Well, I'm not sure. We've got Sarah Miller, Art's lawyer from JSS Barristers. She's phenomenal. She's been working so hard for Art. She's been getting his tickets tossed out the other side because he gets them for feeding the homeless, and she works on them and while he continues to accumulate them, and she gets them tossed out the other side. So she works very hard. She knows Art's file backwards and forwards, and she's so strong on these charter issues about religious freedom and the lockdown that we have her working on our constitutional challenge to the lockdown in Saskatchewan. And she's helping the Full Gospel Outreach church there. So she's really good on this. She's going to work to try her best to keep Art out of jail. And so if people want to donate to offset her legal fees, she's the best in the business, by the way. They can donate at saveartur.com. That's save A-R-T-U-R, the Polish spelling, saveartur.com.
And Sheila, this drives me crazy. The idea that a person like Artur and I did a story in Toronto of 13-year-old Phoenix Scott, who has raised money to also feed the homeless, and her family has been given tickets by the authorities. And by the way, when we met her in January, it was a lot of fun because they put out misinformation on social media that they were going to London, Ontario to feed the homeless there. And sure enough, the London police, and I think it was a camera crew from CTV, they were laying in wait like it was an ambush. And they just spent hours and hours waiting because they were hundreds of kilometers away in Toronto. And but I don't understand. I mean, yes, if you contract COVID, you might get very sick, you might even die. But we know absolutely 100% if you do not eat, you will die of starvation. So how is this good deed helping people get the absolute bare necessities of life, food? How is that punished in such a fashion?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, Art's outside. He's not turning people away. If the hungry come, he will feed them. That's it. He's not going to say, sorry, we have 10. Mr. 11, you have to go sleep under a bridge and freeze to death with a hungry belly.
Yeah.
So he doesn't do that. He can't do that. I don't know anybody who could do that. I guess the Alberta Health Services. But I mean, what an unbelievably unreasonable expectation to put on somebody like Art, who's willing to get fines and go to jail, because for him, he believes he's called by God to take care of these people. He must. He's compelled to take care of them because nobody else will. And even if you're a secular person and you don't understand what he's doing, why can't he just follow the rules? Think about this. Think about the enormous amount of money that someone like Art is saving the taxpayer of Calgary by doing this work.
Yeah.
Because he's doing it and he's fundraising for it. He's getting donations. He's out there not getting paid for it. He's doing it. And the city doesn't have to. He's taking care of these folks. And because he feels that, you know, that everybody has human dignity. And just to put into context, the kind of people that Art feels he must help. A couple of days ago, Adam, again, great interview with Art in his home. Art explains the kind of people that he's helping. He says these are folks who cannot be in a shelter because of their behavior, because of their hygiene, whatever. They can't even go to a shelter. So if Art's not helping them, nobody will. And yet the city is coming down on Art for doing that. And they are going to close his church, or do their best to, and they're going to do their best to try to take him off to jail. And we're going to do everything we can to help him.
Well, I would sure love to see the ostensible policy reason of the city of Calgary or its health officials in terms of trying to prevent somebody from giving food to, you know, people who are, like you said, they can't even get into a shelter. So what are they saying? That you'd rather let them starve or freeze? You know, it's grotesque. And I can't think of a rational explanation whatsoever, Sheila. And you can't use the COVID boogeyman for this. You really can't. But, you know, yes, great interview. And we'll be following that story closely, because, you know, the other media isn't, or even worse, they are on the side of the authorities in trying to get him to be shut down. And by the way, since you mentioned Grace Life Church, Sheila, what is the latest there? Because I know you've reported that to them, their church, it's just a structure that's not, they really don't need that to demonstrate their faith, and they've been meeting en masse at a secret place. I'm curious, you know, in Jason Kenney's Alberta, shouldn't there be some kind of rat patrol out in the countryside looking for this congregation? Because that's what they're ostensibly trying to do, right? Stop big mass gatherings, unless it's in a Costco or a Walmart. Then the virus doesn't care.
Yep.
It respects the commerce of big box stores. So what is the latest on that file, Sheila?
So Grace Life Church, they still continue to meet. They've had 3 services. I think one of them was indoor. The other 2 were outside. For them, as you rightly point out, they are at the church, not the building itself. Yep. I've been past the Grace Life building, and the police presence has greatly diminished. They've still got the roads closed off, and they still regularly patrol, because I suppose that's a really easy job. Like, if you have to actually deal with real criminals or patrol the lockdown church and you didn't feel like working, you would take the lockdown church beat, I guess. And it's mostly just the private security there, Paladin. People have tied like yellow ribbons to the fence and left signs in support of the church on the fence. But really, I think people have started to understand the message of Grace Life that, it's terrible that their building was confiscated by the state, but that's never going to stop them from meeting. And I guess the province can have it.
I wonder, are the police going in and out of the church itself, Sheila, to use the washroom? Because I can tell you at Adamson Barbecue, when the cops seized that and put a fence around it, that's what they were using the restaurant for their, the bathroom services. Because I don't know what it's like out west, but I can tell you, you can hardly find a washroom that's open. In food courts, it's closed down. Many gas stations, they don't have their washrooms open because of COVID. Explain that to me when they're forcing people to do their business beside a tree, how that is somehow enhancing sanitation and hygiene. Again, none of this makes sense, but that's what I did notice when Adamson Barbecue was confiscated. Now the cops had a nice clean bathroom to use while they were standing on guard for thee.
No, the very day that they were locking down the church, before the fence was completely erected around the church, they were already bringing in their own porta potties. They had this planned out that they were going to be there for the long haul. So they have their own porta potties. But I suspect they probably did go into the church, at least in those first initial days, to rummage around, I'm sure. We should get to some of these super chats. We have 9 minutes left in the show. And I didn't even finish John Yoga, his prior chat, where he asked if you're wearing the wig. He also says, Sheila, have you looked into John Tory? Oh, have we ever? I know you're busy, but I want that bastard voted out and held accountable. You know what? We're doing everything we can to hold John Tory to account.
I'm not going to say anything. We have some tips on John Tory and his wife that we cannot report because we have to be bulletproof with our facts. We have to see the evidence. We know the evidence allegedly exists. It'll be a whopper, folks, so hang on. We're doing everything we can to get the people with that evidence. And I know I'm talking in riddles here, but if we can get it, wow, John Tory, he's got a lot of explaining to do.
And I guess the moral of the story, John Yoga, is sometimes you might not see what we're doing until we've checked all of our boxes, and then we'll drop it. And we're always investigating things. Annalisa S. Hi, Annalisa. Donated $10. Thank you very much. Very generous. Got my coffee, crocheting, and watching my favorite Rebels. Annalisa S., did you know that I'm quite the crocheter?
Wow.
I am.
You can do that,
You know
too.
that. You know that. Remember, I was the exclusive crocheted hat supplier to the Brony community in North Central Alberta.
Yes, Sheila Gunn-Reid was making hats for the Bronies. And how is that business going on now? Because I think 2 years ago was the last BronyCon convention in Baltimore.
Oh, I'm just busy with Fight the Fines now, so the Bronies can find somebody else. Let's keep going. Crime Minister Jay Castro donated $203. If you want a picture of the future, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. George Orwell, 1984. Bruce B donated $1.63. Recent study shows that 1 in 3 liberals are just as stupid as the other 2. Shout out to Justin. Nurses for Freedom donated $1.63. When is Bill C-10, the horrible liberal censorship bill, supposed to be voted on? Michelle Rempel, Pierre Poilievre, and other conservative MPs have been speaking out against it. Canada needs a repeal law like California, where Newsom will be repealed. It's coming up pretty fast. I also know that Erin O'Toole finally found some conservative fire to speak out against it.
And you know what, Sheila, I sense there is a bit of momentum gathering. I mean, Ezra was first out of the gate about this. I can tell
We've been watching this for the better part of half a year.
Yes. Well, today in the Toronto Sun, look at that front page, and the headline is Basic Dictatorship with Dangerous Bill C-10, the most anti-internet government in Canadian history, angles for full censorship powers over the web. folks. So it's not just us. Other people are starting to take notice. Unfortunately, as I mentioned on Tuesday, when it comes to the House of Commons, believe it or not, the NDP in the Bloc Québécois thinks this bill doesn't go far enough. So yes, it's up to the Conservatives to, my God, finally make some noise about this, because this is a horrible attack on our freedom of speech.
Chris Rock donated $5. Just wondering how many at mask gathering maskless rallies conduct the rest of their lives without masks. Can you imagine the power we could take back? I encourage all of you to stop complying immediately. Our family has never worn masks, never an issue.
And you know, Sheila, I've been covering now for a year these anti-mask demonstrations, mostly in Toronto. I've only missed a few. And I see the same people coming back again and again. Since they're congregating in mass numbers without a mask, shouldn't they be dead by now, including myself?
Trini Canadian donated $1.62. Would like to know if those caravan migrants actually want to make it to Canada, and how many. Shout out to Justin. So I do know that the Biden administration has been taking migrants that are crossing the southern border and relocating them in the northern states like New York and the border states. And we know all you got to do is walk across the border. Some RCMP officer is going to grab your luggage and you're off to a free hotel and an immigration hearing 3 years from now.
They are actually flying illegal aliens out into the Midwest and the northern states, as Sheila said, folks. This is unbelievable and a complete dereliction of duty by President Biden.
Chris Rock again donated $5. She'll look into the Fort McMurray stories, such as Corey's, now working with the Justice Center as featured on Kevin J. Johnson. Many camp workers at CNRL, etc., are being abused, forced testing, and made to wear RFIDs from retrofitted Fitbits. Please expose. Some of this sounds a lot like embellishment, and I can tell you that some of it sounds a lot like embellishment because my husband and everybody I know works in the oil patch. But I do know that there has been some forced testing at some facilities, and those are an employment rights issue. I'm not sure if some of those workers are union, then their union has to go to bat for them. And we don't do a lot of employment law here, unfortunately. But I have seen some of those stories come across my email. Here's the thing. Please, if you want me to investigate these things, please do not embellish the story. Just give me the facts straight as they are, because sometimes you guys don't know what I already know. You know what I mean?
You're so right, Sheila. As I've always said, one of the reasons O.J. Simpson got off on that murder charge was that the LAPD framed a guilty man, right? You don't need to do it.
Yeah, that's the thing. If it's bad, you don't have to make it seem worse. And like I said, I do know that there have been some forced testing in the camps, and that's an employment rights issue when the company suddenly makes this a term of your employment to be subject to testing. But I also know that it is not in all the camps, because I know a ton of people who are in and out of those same camps all the time. This one is a little iffy, Justin tells me. Bruce B donated $1 Why don't liberals like dentists? Because dentists make teeth straight and white. Again, I'm just reading the chats. I really don't need the aunties just clipping that portion of me from the video and posting that to Twitter. John Yoga donated $1. I know you guys don't like the CBC, but I did like the Peter Mansbridge and Terry Malevsky CTV. I liked Lloyd Robertson. I'm from Toronto, so I liked Mark Daly. It's been all downhill for the mainstream media ever since. Did you like Peter Mansbridge? Did you? That's weird.
Yeah.
Mumby donated $5. Sheila, please. OSB is oriented strand board. Yes, the garbage plywood. Not OBS. Not sure what that is. Okay, so OBS, if I said OBS, that's because OBS is the broadcast software that I use, so that you can see my background, which is actually a green bed sheet because I'm cheap. It costs $7 at Walmart. But I use an open source broadcasting software, OBS, to do that. So if my brain made my mouth say those letters in the wrong order, I'm sorry, but that's why I did that. When I hear a mispronunciation from a journalist, I lose a bit of respect. I switched a letter. I just switched a letter. Lighten up, everybody. I like your style, so please try to keep up the good work. I will. Humongous donated $4.07. Currency printing inflation in the last year has gone through the roof. Interest rates at 0. Yeah. Many commodities have increased significantly in the last year. It isn't a shortage of lumber. It's an oversupply of currency. It's probably both. Rebel Unicycler donated $2.44. I have an idea for a great fundraiser. Can you have David and Ezra ride unicycles down the street in front of Toronto Mayor John Tory's place? I don't know about Ezra's center of gravity. I don't know if you can do that.
Well, I can master the bicycle. The unicycle, that's, I mean, a pox on whoever invented the unicycle. A bicycle is such an efficient way to get around. Why would you take a bicycle, this most efficient way of physical transport, cut it in half, add more balancing inertia to it, and maybe I'm wrong, but Sheila, I could never see a unicycle beating a bicycle in a race. So why was this bloody thing invented in the first place, other than for circus work?
I have no idea. Decipher Loop donated $2.44. Would you be surprised? You would be surprised what you can make out of free wood pallets. I would not be surprised because I make a lot of things out of pallets. I really do. I made a dog bed out of pallets one time. Anyways, C182 OPR donated $8.13. Yes, Menzies as a lumberjack reminds me of Monty Python's song. I cut down trees. I wear high heels, suspenders and a bra. Better not give David any ideas. We have a strict no costume rule here at the Rebel.
Yep,
these
I
days.
can't do the Lady Menzoid shtick anymore, so I can't wear the. And I'll tell you, my God, dressing up as a female, I got to take my hat off to womankind. What you do to make yourselves attractive: high heel shoes, brassieres, girdles. I mean, my goodness. Guys, we got to appreciate the female of our species, because I don't see Justin's going like this in circles.
Yeah.
What they do to look attractive is over and above the call of duty. So I salute you.
I'm wearing a t-shirt and pajama pants. Just so you know.
And you look great.
Well, it's a lot of work. Paul Otto Newman donated $5. Has anyone else been wondering why the AHS lady was wearing safety goggles? They all do. They all look like they're headed into heart surgery. Can somebody please explain how cheap plastic goggles save you from COVID? Yeah. I mean, they might save you from getting a wood chip in your eye if you're grinding and stops like metal flecks from ending up in your eye. But I'm not sure how it's going to stop COVID. And that I know, Justin, we need to wrap up, but that actually reminds me of the story I did over the weekend. I went to a motocross park, which I was okay, I can't believe that this is my job, but fine, perfect. And the rule there is you can have practice, but you can't have competition. Because
So they're not racing, Sheila. They're practicing racing, which looks like racing to me.
it's literally a sport where practice looks identical to racing, like literally identical. There's only one way to practice, really, right? Like you get on the track and you go around and around. But if you keep track of winners and losers, then COVID will jump out from behind the bushes and drag your grandma away. Like, it's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. So yeah, the AHS wearing safety goggles, even though it doesn't make any sense, no surprise. Kane and Mark donated $5. Nahid Nenchi is a gay man. I don't know. I don't care. I was dating Nahid, first chief of staff. Pastor Artur was not wrong. I love Pastor Artur. Shout out to Justin. I don't care. I really don't care about Naheed Nenchi's religion. I don't care about his sexual preferences. I care that he's been a terrible mayor who has blown through a ton of money in Calgary and mismanaged the state of that city. And I also don't like him because he has given contracts and preferential treatment to anti-oil activists with city taxpayer money. So there are a lot of reasons to dislike Mayor Naheed Nenchi and want change, and his sexuality and religion are like not even on the list for me.
Sheila, my brain is still processing what you just said. Here is a mayor in Calgary, heart of oil country, giving money to anti-oil activists. How does a guy like that get elected? That's unbelievable to me.
I don't know. You know, the problem is that there hasn't been a really strong conservative challenger against him in a long time.
And how is that possible?
I know. It's because they all get sucked up into provincial politics, right?
Wow.
That's the city that gave us Ralph Klein as mayor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I have some fantasy football mayoral choices for there. Jeremy Farkas, I mean, he's great. He's young. Hopefully his campaign gets some momentum. We need some big name challengers to Naheed Nenchi.
If it's Farkas, that's a Hungarian name, if I am not mistaken. So they know what it's like to be under totalitarian control, if you go back to 1956 specifically. But anyways, carry on. Annalisa S. donated $5. Art should hold his services at 8:05 p.m. How about Art holds them whenever the heck he feels like? That's the whole point. I don't like the fact that Art's got to play by their rules. Yeah. His rules are the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and his pastoral obligations to honor God before the government. And so why worry about what's in the order? Why try to find a loophole? Yeah, just try holding your services at 8:05 in Montreal, which is 5 minutes past curfew. There's a whole new kit and caboodle of charges for you, right?
Follow the science. At 8:05, it's okay to have church services in Alberta, but it'll get you arrested in Quebec. This virus is very smart. Scott donated $3. Will you be covering the No More Lockdowns St. Catherine's Peaceful Assembly on May 1st at the Memorial Park? I don't know. I don't think so. I think everybody's busy this weekend.
I'm going to be in Montreal with a couple of other rebels. There's something big happening, we think, on May 1st. But May 1st is a big date, and I think the next big date is May 15th for these anti-lockdown protests. So maybe then.
Yeah, and I know, like, even our head of video, Efron, he's going to, it sounded like he was going to cover at church. Like, everybody who's not even normally in front of the camera, we're all out. And I'm at an illegal rodeo, which, again, can't believe I get paid for that, but I'm going to an illegal rodeo.
I'm so jealous, even though I was viciously injured in Smoky Lake, Alberta, riding a bull in 1985. But I don't hold it against the rodeo folk. I still love the rodeo, but oh boy, did they play a trick on me.
Again, Alberta Health Services wants to crack down on the rodeo because it's dangerous in the times of COVID. And it's like, these guys get on bulls with no saddles and have their bones crushed all the time. You think they're scared of COVID? Like, how is that getting on the bull is okay, but you think that they're going to get the flu, so...
Horrible.
Anyway. It's none of it makes sense. Hillary donated $2 and says, how can AHS get a secret warrant and trample over the Criminal Code of Canada? Because a judge signed off on it.
Yeah.
A judge signed off on it. They gave them permission to do it. Donated $10. You guys read Agenda 2030? I have. The end game, one world order. Keep up the good work. We all have a duty to save our freedom. Love you guys. Thank you. A hyper chat of 25 libraries. Thanks, Sheila and David from JB. Oh, you're welcome. Red State donated $2.16. So other faith leaders are going to stand by while these Christians are persecuted? What a disgrace. There's no community, only NIMBY cowards. And it's not just other faith leaders. It's other Christian faith leaders. You know, that I've seen Christian faith leaders, particularly from the United Church, if you can call the United Church a church. I mean, they have atheist pastors, which makes them a self-help group, which is fine, but don't call yourself a church then. Anyway, they've written letters condemning Pastor Coates, I guess because he had the guts to do what they would never do, and that's honor God above the state. And, there will be faith leaders who come out against Pastor Art. I mean, and even if you disagree with what he's doing, if you don't have the guts to do what he's doing, maybe just keep your mouth shut. Why do you have to openly condemn him? What's the point? And I think the last one is Savage Gang Studios donated $2.44. Why has no one at Rebel done a story on the businesses in BC that deny service to mask wearers and people who have been vaccinated? Well, we have people going, David, you'd work 24 hours a day if you could. I feel like I work 24 hours a day if I could, because not just the stories that you see us do on camera, we do other things at the company too. So I have a couple different roles at the company. Everybody does. We're gone all the time. We just can't get to all the stories. There aren't enough of us, and there's too much news. We're trying as hard as we can. We're bringing new people onto the team all the time and training them to expand their roles. So people like Lincoln, who used to only be behind the camera, they're coming out in front of the camera.
That's right.
Our videographers are learning new skills all the time because we know there are stories that we just don't have the lifting capacity to get to. So we're doing our best, but please remember, we don't have CBC's budget.
Yeah.
And we're under constant threat of having, us be nuked from not just YouTube, the internets altogether if the Liberals get their way. But, we can only grow as fast as we have the money to grow to do. And we're doing our best with the money that we have. But again, we don't take money from Justin Trudeau. So our growth might be a little even-handed and a little more conservative than you might see from broadcasters who take money from Justin Trudeau. So please bear with us as we try to bring more people online to cover the news, because there is more news than ever.
But Sheila, did I hear that correctly? These are businesses somewhere in BC that are not serving customers who are wearing masks? Is that? Well, that is truly a man bites dog story when it comes to the mask debate, isn't it?
And to people who have been vaccinated. And here's the thing, I'm of two minds of this, but I think it's the same as that story that I sent you the other day about the gas station.
Oh yeah, Pioneer.
Yeah. Pioneer, and it was an independent Pioneer owner, so it wasn't the company. And I want to point that out because the company did issue a statement. One of their store owners said that if you are vaccinated, you will get a $2 discount on a car wash. And my first response is, you know what, it's their business, whatever. If I'm not vaccinated and I don't want to save money on a car wash, I'll go somewhere else. But can you discriminate? Can you charge people a different price based on their health status? Whatever that health status is. I think you can't. Because that's like going to a tattoo parlor and the tattoo parlor says to you, do you have HIV? You say yes. They say, okay, we're going to charge you $500 more.
Right.
They'd get in big trouble. And I think if we can't do it on that side, then you probably shouldn't be doing it on the other side. So I don't know if you can deny service to people who have been vaccinated, because that's denying somebody service based on their health status, right? And on the other side, I don't think you should be giving people different prices based on their health status either.
Well, if I can say to the viewer, if you can pass on the details of that to tips@rebelnews.com, we can forward it to our excellent reporter in British Columbia, Drea Humphrey, and see what's what. But as Sheila said, folks, we're not ignoring your tips and your calls and what have you. It's an avalanche, isn't it, Sheila? It's just so hard to keep up. And we're working every weekend. Again, something you don't see in the mainstream media, right?
No, I mean, the fact that this is Thursday and we're on air right now, when this used to just be a Friday live stream and there's so much news, we made it 5 days a week, which we were like, hey, Justin, how about 4 extra days of live stream? Not that you don't have anything else to do. So it's constant. But yes, if you would to send that to us at tips@rebelnews.com, I'm CC'd on those. And I will pass it along to Drea. But I think now you know my stand on that is, as a story, I think it's interesting. But my opinion is that I don't think anybody on either side of the argument should be discriminating against anybody based on their health stats.
100%. And are we all caught up now, Sheila?
I believe we are.
Okay, thank you so much to everybody that tuned in. A special thank you to the super chatters and the hyper chatters and all the other chatters that puts a little dollar thing next to, or a library thing next to their chat. And thank you again to Justin behind the board. And on the behalf of Sheila Gunn Reid, I'm David Menzies signing off and telling you one and all to stay sane.